Hello, everybody. This is Mike Young with the digitalnomad.net, and I am back with Don from N2itive and also Tony from EV Fix Me, which is an all-electric or mostly electric independent repair shop or garage in Southern California. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
And the topic of this video is really just to talk about what you see behind me, which are parts from N2itive, Don's company, that have been designed to be a solution for the problems that the Tesla Model S and X cars have. And that is a two-part problem: rear inner tire wear combined with a front end driveline vibration. So we want to talk about why these parts are different. And you'll notice they do cost a little bit more, but I think for me, having used previous parts from another company and having used N2itives myself on my own vehicle that I've got 170,000 miles on, of all my driving, I can tell you they are a vast improvement in quality. So let's get to Tony right away from EV Fix Me. I think you've used different parts here as well. You've seen all the different options. What can you say about N2itive's parts?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we've seen a lot of different ones. The one thing that really jumped out to me with N2itives is the very robust design. Just right off the bat, when we looked at it, it looked like a very solid part. We also liked how the locking mechanisms worked, and can see that once the suspension is dialed in, it is going to stay there permanently. Now, we've seen failures of original Tesla arms. Actually, we had a car that came in because the rear corner of one of the sides was all the way dropped, as slammed as low as the car can go. And that wasn't the intention of the owner. They didn't have the car slammed that low. They were simply driving. I think they just got in their car. They're in a parking lot and they just drove a little bit and something gave out and the car just slammed like that. And then he managed to limp all the way home, causing some wear inside his inner fender, but nothing that was unrepairable. So once we got the car, we jacked it up, looked at it, we found that the original Tesla arm itself had cracked. And when that cracked, it caused the arm to basically buckle in on itself. And when that buckled in on itself, the point for the air suspension adjustment arm, was totally out of place, which the car is just confused where it was. And it ultimately just led to the air suspension dropping. We've got some other designs before. There was one that changes the bushing out. And I was getting ready to install that. I know that there some warnings on the box because depending on which arms you had, they may or may not be compatible. And the adjustment that was available on that was somewhat limited. It was generally enough to help you from keeping the inner tire wear problem but there was still pretty big limitations on the amount of adjustability it could go, because it would simply just rotate within the space of the old bushing. Another thing I noticed about that one, it replaced the bushing, but it seemed to no longer have a bushing either. So I ultimately ended up not using that because shortly as I was preparing to install that, I met Don and saw his arms, and that's when I decided, these are the arms that I got to put on my car.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's some good testimony. You've got a lot of experience, and you've installed a number of these on cars that have come into your facility. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, generally, I think it would probably get at least 1 to 2 a month of people coming in and getting either, a set of the Camber arms by themselves or Camber and tow arms. And then we've done a few cars that want to go all the way and lower the car to protect their axles. We can see when we look at the cars, the camber angles are much better. And, we can just tell off the bat based on that and look at even how the tire is starting to wear now. It's getting a much more even wear pattern. So, we know that it's going to continue serving the purpose really well of being able to have the proper alignment to maximize this tire wear.
Okay, so it's really two things you need to be certain of. Number one is that you can dial in that proper alignment and keep it there. Like you mentioned, that is possible with these N2itive parts. And also that they are strong so that they are not going to destroy themselves as the suspension is constantly moving up and down and under load and things like that, right?
Correct. Yeah, these are very strong arms. I know Don has 2 lines. The automotive grade, it's plenty strong. We recommend those typically for most people who are just looking to get their suspension upgraded. We do have some of the extreme track racers or just some of the crowds that that just got to have the top of the line. You know, they'll go for the black ones, which are
Yeah.
also, you know, the red ones. I have no problems putting those on my car. You know,
Right.
I wouldn't. Hey, you know, you really need to get more strength. They're both great products, and you know, whichever way you go, you absolutely cannot go wrong.
Okay, and before we ask Don some questions, I wanted to mention, Tony, that you and I talked before this video. I had a catastrophic failure on my car. It was back in later 2019, and I had these original design arms, the camber arms put on. It was only the camber arms. Behind me, you can see these are camber, and there's the toe. Don can probably point out, and then there's the lowering links here. But I had just a camber because at the time that was the only solution out there, and I had a catastrophic failure within. I'd say it was probably 6 months maximum. Okay, that I had catastrophic failure, and I even had to take it back to Tesla to look at it. And Tesla told me at the time too, because you mentioned fitment issues, right? That whoever installed these for me also had to file away some of the original castings on that subframe on the suspension where it meets on the inside of the car. And Tesla said it didn't cause any problems, at least not now, but it was less than ideal. Mm-hmm. And I know that, is there any of that required with Don's parts at N2itive?
No, you know, these parts fit like a glove. The only modification you have to do is when you take out the bolt for the tow arm, due to the way that the car is designed, there's just no physically possible way to take that bolt out without dropping the subframe. You have to cut the old bolt off, and then Don supplies, you know, a new bolt. You know, we have no concerns about that. No other modifications at all need to be done to the car.
Okay, and then to get onto the catastrophic failure, what happened with mine was within like 6 months, as I was saying, somehow they failed. Basically, their teeth, and they go together, and they're supposed to hold permanently when you put them together, but they didn't. They started sliding, and they ate themselves up, and my steering was all over the place. Autopilot even would shut off on me. I couldn't figure out what was wrong until I realized I couldn't drive over about 30, 35 miles an hour without the car losing control, and had to have it towed on the flatbed. So if you're wondering, you know, can something go wrong with this? Yes. And that's why you want to be sure to get the best, strongest parts that you can get, in my opinion.
Yeah. And just to clarify, those were not N2itive parts you're using.
Correct. They were not. Yes. I was, be absolutely sure. That's why I met Don. I learned about N2itive after this. And Don can say that I was on the phone with him many times questioning him, because I'm like, look, the last thing I want is to have to go through that again, because literally myself or others could have been killed. Thankfully, they weren't. But that could easily happen when you're dealing with inferior quality parts.
Yeah,
a combination. I'm going to jump in here. The parts themselves and the installation is very important. You know, we always make sure to properly torque every single one of these suspension bolt nuts that we touch. And, you know, if that's not done properly, you can have issues like that. We've actually seen some cars, one car in particular that came that was missing one of the lower control arm nuts. Now, it's really odd because we looked at this car, everything looked original. You know, the suspension didn't look changed. It didn't look like anybody was in there monkeying around or anything and loosening. And the one nut that disappeared is not one that you would use for an adjustment during a alignment either. So we really couldn't figure out why it was missing, but because it was missing, one of the arms was moving around quite a bit. And due to that, just kind of like what you were talking about, the teeth of that screw was eating away at the knuckle. And, you know, we advised the owner that we don't recommend reusing his knuckle because we can see that it had lost quite a bit of metal. So we ended up replacing that too. But yeah, we have no idea why that nut was missing. Unfortunately, he drove it for, I think, 6 months like that. So that's what caused, you know, so much additional damage. But both, you know, you make sure you have a quality part and make sure you have a very competent installer who's going to do it right. Yep,
very good points. And Don, now you're the one that has designed and you are in charge of the manufacturing of these specific parts. So what can you tell us about what you've got? And you can see them behind me.
Yeah, so we started originally by designing the adjustable camber arm, the SX1 there behind you. And it turned out to be far more challenging of an engineering feat than I had anticipated. And one of the main things I wanted to do was I wanted to keep the threaded rod where you make the adjustment on center with the bushings.
And that's
Um,
like right here, right? Is that it?
yeah,
In this
that's the
area?
toe arm, but it's the same on the.
Okay, let me step out of the way. There.
Yeah. So yeah, right there by the rod end.
Up there?
That's it. That's it. So
Okay.
whenever you have an adjustable control arm, that's always going to be generally your weakest link. And so it's critical, if possible, you want to keep that on center with the bushings. So there's no possible way it can be tweaked one way or the other.
Right.
And that took a lot of time to figure that out, because there's not that much room in there to work with. So, but we did, and as far as I can see right now, we are the only company that makes adjustable control arms for the S and the X that keeps that threaded rod on center with the bushings. It's not at an angle. It's perfectly straight. And from our own, it's called finite element analysis, that by itself improved the strength of the arm by over 40%.
Nice.
And there's actually one company out there, I won't mention their name, but they sell a really inexpensive product, but their arm, their threaded rods are so far off center, it's really scary. And I feel for the people that install those. And I'm not trying to talk trash about my competitors at all. I think it's dangerous. I think they haven't been gone under any sort of proper testing, and they're cheap, and some people like cheap. But
yeah,
I think
this is a safety issue for sure. These parts, I mean, yeah, ultimately you design them so that you can get the proper alignment that we and you want, but it has to be strong, because as Tony pointed out, if something breaks, and it did with me, your alignment is out of control at that point. Your car is out of control.
Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting that you got those original pieces. Tesla also tried to come up with their own solution using a similar method. And basically, I think they had similar problems where that bushing would slip. Because it's under so much pressure, it would slip, and then you have even worse negative camber issues than you did before. So I think they just stopped at that point, and for whatever reason, they didn't pursue an adjustable arm, which was really from an engineering standpoint, would be the right way to go.
Yeah, and let me point something out to viewers also, that the Model X is at least rated for towing of up to 5,000 pounds and a 500-pound tongue weight at the maximum. So you've got to account for those additional stresses as well in a design. It's not because the same arm goes on S and X. So if you're designing one, you're designing one for the other. It's got to be strong enough to handle that towing, right?
Yeah, it is a lot of weight. And even without the towing, these are essentially the heaviest cars in the world that you can buy. I mean, I'm sure there's heavier ones, but for all intents and purposes, you don't get much heavier than a Tesla Model X.
Yeah, for the size of the vehicle, I'd say absolutely. Yeah, because I tell people my car, dry weight, or it's not. Well, it is dry. It's not you're adding gasoline. Like it's 5,300 pounds, right? I mean, that's when you think 5,300 pounds, you're thinking like a Suburban or something like that size. But I mean, mine has plenty of room in it. It's big, but it's not that size, and it weighs a lot.
It does weigh a lot, yeah.
They're very heavy. I had a tow truck driver when he dropped off a car. He asked me, how much does this car weigh? When I was towing this thing feels like a huge brick. I was like, oh yeah, it's north of 5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Don, I for one will say I'm glad you put the time and effort into obviously a challenging engineering issue, getting these parts correct so that we can solve, or at least mostly solve, these problems with the inner tire wear and the front end vibration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one of the main points, is getting those things on alignment with the threaded rod there. I mean, there's other things too we could get into. I don't know how long we want to go with this video.
Well, just really, I mean, the point of what we're saying is just kind of for anyone, from going from someone who, I don't know, is a mechanic themselves to someone who is a layperson and knows nothing about Teslas other than you don't go to a gas station to put fuel in it. I mean, if you're going to have this problem where you're going to try to avoid your rear tires getting eaten up and some vibration on the front as well in combination, you really need to get some well-engineered parts, because I think that we can all agree that Teslas are well-engineered vehicles. There's a few areas where they didn't quite get it exactly right, and this is one of them, but you need to put a lot of time and dedication into this to solve it and do it correctly.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Yeah. Yeah, and then the lowering links. One of the cool things about the lowering links is the
and they are here. Where am I looking?
other side.
Here.
Yeah.
Lowering links.
So the lowering links have a built-in. It's called a vernier scale. So you can. You don't have to use a separate caliper to take the measurements to make them the same size on all four wheels.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but it's here because this is like almost like a plunger, right? I mean, it goes in and it expands, and then the small part has those markings on it.
It does. I mean, you can kind of see it. It's actually on the other side, on the black part towards the top.
Oh, it's on the black part. Okay.
Yeah.
So up top, like in this area, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we actually those pieces have been redesigned since then. We have actual larger scale now. It's a little easier to read since we don't use every number. We skip number. We do every even number just to make it easier to read, because then you can make the numbers bigger.
Right.
But yeah, it's cool because you can just dial that little sleeve in to whatever number you want, tighten down the set screw, and you're done. You don't have to measure it. It's really quick and easy. And same thing. The quality is fantastic. They're not the cheapest ones in the world, but you know what? They're going to last you a lifetime.
Well, and that's important. People aren't buying Teslas because they're inexpensive, right?
Yeah.
So if you want a similar quality part like this, then as your car as a whole. So I'd say that's what you're making over here at N2itive. I cannot say that for others. And like I said, I've had bad experiences with the other parts, and I can see why. I didn't realize at the time there weren't any choices really at the time, but now there are choices. And the point of this video is to kind of let you all know, if you want to keep that same level of quality and performance that you expect from your Tesla, in my opinion, you want to go with N2itive.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. And Tony, if you're still there, would you echo that?
I think he's
yes, totally. Yep. We have this. I have it. Like I said, I have it on my car. I put it on my wife's car. We put it on my brother's car. All of our Teslas, we have this.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. And I remember, Mike, after you got them installed, the first thing you did was go to Death Valley and go off-roading in your X.
Yeah, that's right.
You're right. I did. Video of that.
Yeah, they've been great, and actually, I can say, I mean, Don's done an amazing job. Don is, I'd say, you correct me if I'm wrong, Don. I feel like you've dedicated your entire life to this right now. I mean, to these parts that you see behind me, right? To solving this problem, because and it's an important problem to solve, because the Tesla design was a compromise, and I can understand it in a way. I guess, Tony, let me know your feelings. But S and X are highline cars. They don't necessarily expect people to get, I guess, they're not buying it for long tire wear, right? That's not the average S and X customer. But then when you're shocked and you realize that the tires are very, very, they don't last long at all with the original setup, that's why Don steps in and helps out.
Yeah. So I think one of the key things is another big aspect is performance that people buy the cars for. So Tesla wanted to build a very well performing car. So I think that's why they chose that camber setup kind of be stock. And as you lower the car, your camber increases. So you do get better grip and performance on that. With that being said, I drive my car pretty hard too. Even with a -1 setting for my camber, I find that it handles very well. I don't have any issues with it. Would I handle better at -2? Yeah, but that comes at a price. And with as much as I drive, that's not the price that I want to pay for every day.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah, I agree. And I also mentioned this to Don. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, Tony, that I feel like my car tracks better under normal driving than it did from the factory, because I feel like factory setup, you're really riding on those inside edges of the tires the whole time. So there's not much of a contact patch under normal drive.
Yeah, correct. So that camber is set that way so that when you're doing a lot of turns, as you're turning, your car is going to lean a little bit. So when you lean a little bit, then you're kind of offsetting that and you're getting that increased patch of tire. Whereas if you didn't have that, then when you're into your turn hard, then you're going to be teetering like we feel normally. So, it is a good design. It's not a problem that it's set for that camber, but not that adjustability for most people who are not tracking 24/7. They're just driving to and home from work.
That's what I am. Yeah.
They're actually better off with a more conservative driving setup. There's a lot of different suspensions that you can dial your car for. And when you're racing, depending on your track conditions, you're even going to set your car differently for that. So, for an all-around general, this conservative -1 that we can put on because of these arms, that's going to give you good wear and good handling.
Okay, let's talk about one other aspect, Tony, that kind of is brought up by what you just mentioned, and that is the people that are truly in the performance and performance only. The ones who the negative camber is so severe, I can just see it from 3 blocks away. And I think they're coming into your shop, is that right? And they want to put even more negative camber, and they're also using Don's parts, right? Because they're the strongest ones available. Is that right?
We actually haven't seen too much of that.
You haven't,
but
okay.
I know that the alignment shop that we work with,
That's right.
They work with a lot of cars like that, and we have heard some feedback back that there has been a customer that bought these arms so that they can get more camber.
Yeah. Well, the same thing holds true though. If you want to do that, and I wouldn't recommend it, and I don't think you would either, but you want to have you still want to have the strongest parts. You don't want to have anything go wrong in that circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, this is suspension, your brakes, your tires. Those are really key importance to keeping yourself safe. So it's money well spent to have something that's solidly built and installed and is going to last and keep you and your family safe.
Okay, yeah. All right, well, Don and Tony, thank you, Don, for designing all these and your continued efforts. I know because you're continually working on this, refining things, making things better. And
Yeah.
Tony, just for you going out there and having an independent garage there, EV Fix Me, that's to me the future of car repair. I'm sure that we'll be hearing more about you guys in the future and the work that you're doing. And thank you for doing all this too, because to close on this, one issue you might run into with these parts is that Tesla themselves will not install them. So you need to find a knowledgeable shop. And I know that Don can help you with that. And of course, if you're in Southern California near Los Angeles, then EV Fix Me is the place to go, right?
Yeah,
Totally.
EV Fix Me is awesome. And not just for our own parts, but I mean, just in general, if you own a Tesla, especially if it's out of warranty, you should really know EV Fix Me because they're just really great people. They'll put you in the right direction, and their rates are very reasonable, and they're good guys. I really enjoy working with them, and I always recommend them whenever I can.
Thanks for the high compliments. Yes, we definitely, we were built here to serve the customers. We saw a need. We had problems getting cars for self-service. And, being that I have done a lot of service myself, we just decided to go all in and then open up a shop. And we definitely will work with all the cars that Tesla doesn't want to touch because they're modified. We do a lot of customizations for our customers also. So we're definitely not afraid of a modified car.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, thanks, guys. And as things develop, if we get any new information, we'll make an update video. In the meantime, let us know any questions you have below and share this with anybody else who's got a Model S or X Tesla or even thinking about it, because if you want to get your best tire wear and get rid of that vibration, you're going to want to use these parts, I think. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And thanks, Tony. Really appreciate it.